So, so I want to welcome Susan Barnes, a dear friend and member of the Seanius, for her member interview. To hit it off, why don't you just essentially give us a bit of background about who you are and like what led you here. Here meaning the Seanius.
Okay, sure. Where to begin? I was born on a hot summer day. The past 3 years of my life have actually been pretty transformative, and I would say are the impetus for how I find myself being interviewed by you and a part of the Seanius community at this point in time. I left a very successful, lucrative career in New York City as the controller of a hedge fund in search of something more real and true, which led me on my own sort of hero's journey, which hero doesn't even actually feel like the right word. I would say maybe more of a seeker's journey, to really dive deep into who I am as a person. After living for most of my life, attuning to a story and narrative that was much more serving of society and culture at large rather than my own individual intuitions and predispositions. I recognized that I needed time and space to actually come into some sort of knowing of who I am, who I was at the time. And so I gifted myself several years to actually figure that out. And giving myself more than enough time that I actually knew that I would need to ensure that I wasn't under any sort of duress to force me into a direction that was not true to who I am as a person. And so I gave myself just 2 rules: to always be where it's warm and to follow my intuition. And it led me all around the world. So many different experiences, so many different people, finding myself in all sorts of circumstances that my imagination could never have possibly even begun to experience on its own. And this opening that was born from the continuous deepening of self and understanding of self ultimately led me to different circles of communities of people who were experiencing a similar resonance of, I think, the cultivation of truth, the cultivation of what is real underneath it all at the end of the day, that which I think I liken more to wisdom, things that are timeless, that are shared by all. And a large part of that was sort of the attunement to the heart. And so finding myself in situations with people in which they were leading with more than just what was known. They were ready to step into the unknown. And following my intuition found me in your circles, actually. And every, I think, interaction that we've shared has been so inspired thus far. And so it seems that this is just a natural progression and continuation of sort of that resonance, that mutual resonance that is not just shared between us, but shared between so many other people around the world.
That's beautiful, and I like that you actually ended with what is the principle of the Seanius, the principle of resonance, and that which you feel with certain people and certain situations that truly like tap into your intuition and destiny. I wanted to ask you, in that journey that you've been on, could you share, like, if you were to choose like 3 key realizations that kind of like change you and change your life, like what would those be?
I would say the first one, the strongest one that's coming up so far, is the recognition of the importance of story/myth as it relates to overall well-being and sense of self and the way in which we orient to others. And when I say myth, I don't necessarily mean it as any sort of fictitious experience of story, but more so what it is that we choose to believe is the foundation of what we know, culturally, personally, familially, platonically, romantically, all of these ways of relation that inform our mental states, they inform our choices, and ultimately have a great bearing on the way in which we are either experiencing life with, I think, curiosity and wonder and excitement, or if we become prisoners of our own pain and suffering. And I think that the differentiation between the two is the way in which we perceive the story of our lives and the story that we hold of each other. That mythology that informs the way in which we choose to orient ourselves in our moments with that which we come into relation with. So that was a big one. And a part of that is a part of the continuing deepening of self, continuing sort of like examination of the stories that are informing me in my moments, in my interactions, like what's coming up, being able to actually see them as story and see whether or not the perspective in which the story is approached is one that's actually real and true and healthy, or some sort of distorted filter that is not my own, that has been automatic and placed and might be informing, right? So the ability to discern, right? So I would say that's the big one. The second one is what I spoke to before in terms of intuition. And so really, truly, by choosing to allow my intuition to lead me in life, I was making choices that afforded me the ability to actually begin to cultivate a stronger relationship with this information that was coming through me at all times. And my ability to actually be able to understand the subtleties of this language, this unique language that communicates through me, through you, through all of us, that I believe is a true barometer of our individual path, that affords us the ability to sort of cut through the din of everything, of all the stimulus, of all of like the potentialities that exist, and to find in ourselves the direction in which to move forward, which is a language that's so unique, primarily because of the fact that it really doesn't match up with the rational thinking mind. And so much of our culture, I think, emphasizes, or at least overemphasizes, the intellectualization of living, of experiencing. And this is, and so being able to cultivate a relationship with this more abstract, nonlinear, more feeling, more sensing intelligence that communicates in a very different way that doesn't necessarily line up with the rational thinking, cultivated this relationship of understanding trust and surrender to a deeper level, of trusting the things that may not make sense if I think about them rationally or philosophically, but leaning into that time and time again, and noticing what happens when I don't listen to that, and seeing the ways in which it's reinforced to come back to it. And ultimately the invariable balancing of the two, of what emerges from the intuitive impulse, what emerges from the heart, what emerges from the mind, and how to have them act in congruence with each other, I think, to create a very holistic experience of living that is wholly one's own, right? Because we can't really control what's going on outside of us, but like we can control the way in which we are relating and experiencing life. So that I think was another really big lesson for me. The last one I would say, this is a hard one because there's so many, right? So it's like, how much one do I pick?
I understand, but we have about like I'm trying to keep them at about an hour, so that they're kind of like digestible for people to watch. I have another one actually at one. So I understand, and we could talk about like all day, and we may have like more. I mean, we'll definitely have more chances to do so. But yeah, 3 for now.
Yep. So the third one I would say is the interconnectedness of everything, of really truly experience all life with a degree of reverence that is usually only held for very specific aspects of life, I would say. Like the relationship that we share with our parents, if it's a healthy one, or the relationship that we share with a lover, you know, there's a reverence and a sanctity, a sacredness in which we approach these types of relationships that is quite special. But the ability to actually extrapolate that same level of honor and sanctity for a tree, for plants, for animals, for each other, beyond the boundaries of you know, what we discern our relationships to be, and really finding the ability to love all life truly, and recognizing that the inherent connection of everything, like we're so incredibly interdependent on everything, and the power that one possesses in terms of bringing love, reverence, and honor to all of the moments that we interact with all kinds of life. Yeah, and that in and of itself has really shifted my experience of life and living, and has really enriched my existence.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think these were really important 3 realizations.